Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
associated with the creation
or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked
and sometimes what didn't.
You will also hear very personal experiences
and insights that would trigger your thoughts
and inspire you to do even greater things.
Before we jump into today's conversation, a special thanks to PM Power Consulting for encouraging and supporting this show right from the start. With over 1,000 person years of collective experience, PM Power has helped many organizations, teams, and individuals chart out their own journeys of excellence and make progress. Thank you, PM Power. Now, let's move to today's episode.
Today, you will listen to Sunil Gupta, fondly known as SKG. He is a senior director in Cognizant with over 3 decades of experience spanning supply chain, IT-BPM, SaaS platforms, and now he's a marketing and influencer relations at Cognizant. He covers how he started his career in procurement and how he's done several experimental procedures using reverse auctions, e-procurement, including the current commodity-based systems. He shares how he's crossed several geographies, including Philippines as well as US, through his career. He talks about Unlock Yourself as a book and many self-help books. He has taught himself through personal introspection and self-coaching. A key takeaway moment when he talks about is ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you were never meant to do this alone. I also loved that when he talks about, I realized I've always been in procurement, even when I didn't know it. We are all negotiating in life and work. Listen on. Welcome to the Software People Stories, Sunil. So happy to have you here.
I'm delighted to be here, Gayatri, and thanks for inviting me.
Sunil, can you introduce yourself to our audience in your own words?
Sure. I was thinking about this as you shared with me that I have to come here, and there are different aspects of everyone. So do I have different personas, you can say. And as I understand, your audience is very professionally oriented. They are looking for some, insights which will be valuable to them. And I've also noticed that recently you have had some discussion on S curves, and that was very close to me as a topic. So it's very good to be here in that sense. I have been working for now more than 3 decades in corporate world. I'm by nature, I'm a supply chain person. When I'm saying that, it's not that just my initial training happened in supply chain. When I reflect as a child, I was always good in getting things sorted. When something has to be organized, I would find a way, whether it is in a wedding or it's in a puja. I mean, whatever you give me the task, I'll figure out a way to get it done. When I started the career, I was an exception when we had, in that time in 1992, coming out from college, there was a system in the company where I worked that they'll invite all the graduate engineer trainees for 2 weeks in their head office, and all the business units will present about themselves and which functions they are looking for people. And then people will choose, interesting things like R&D. Those who wants to go in sales and marketing, they'll choose that. Someone wants to go in factory, they're clear they want to choose operations. No one in college knows about procurement or purchase as a department. So at the day of interview, I said I want to go to Mysore Works and I want to be in procurement, because they used to call it procurement. And everyone was shocked, including my to-be manager. He says, "Why are you asking for procurement, that too in that factory?" And I said, "I learned that you will be manufacturing computer printers, ultrasounds, ECG machines, and this all sounds very exciting. And I think the way you describe, you are going to outsource these things and you want to localize components which are coming from different countries. All this is very exciting for me, and this is a new venture of this company, so it will be more youthful probably." And that set the journey for me. And then you won't believe I was traveling to Mysore from Mumbai. I was in a train, and this is how it happened. Like three of us were going. We became good friends also, each in different team. I was in procurement. One was in actual production, the assembly line, and another one I'm forgetting what he chose. We were sitting in three berths, and there were some other people. It was a train to Bangalore, and there was someone who asked, "Okay, what are you all going to do?" Everyone told. I said, "I'm going to be in procurement in the same factory." He said, "You are going to be in procurement. Who is you going to be your boss?" I named the boss. He says, "Your life will be hell. I'm a supplier to that company." That was like calibration. So from there, I was fascinated by how different people can see the same thing. I'm excited. This guy is realist, and I can't ignore his. And my manager was a tough guy to work, but he loved me for some reason. So I had a good time, and people were sometimes envious of me. So that's another thing which happens in the world of working. Moving ahead, like I worked in, hardcore procurement for around 10 years. And then I moved to IT-BPM industry. Got the transition happened in a way that I was one of those people in that company at that time who got trained in 1999 on reverse auctions as a buyer. And we were way ahead of the market adoption because Ariba had just come in. There were one or two other players, and this company being a global automobile manufacturer, they were part of the three companies like Ford, uh, General Motors, and one more company had tied up hands. I'm forgetting the third company's name to create a common supply chain ecosystem to make the vendors little easy to work with the three manufacturers basically. One of there was to create a procurement processes and platforms, and then some consulting company was signed up with my employer, which were training the buyers and also giving them a platform for reverse auction. So that was like 6 months of hardcore immersion into e-procurement with the best in the class happening that time. And that really got me excited. I could not ever imagine that what I'm spending time in negotiation as a buyer can be done with the technology with so much ease. And they had proven the use case. I mean, it was not just a pilot. But at that time, a shift happened. I saw an ad in the newspaper in 1999. I remember it. It said, "What will you tell your children? What were you doing when internet was happening in India?" And the name said the company name. That was my next employer actually, and I liked the ad, and I thought, okay, this company is worth investigating. It so happened that a colleague of my manager in previous company where I was trained in e-commerce and I mean B2B procurement, he joined this company. So my manager said, if you really like this, why don't you go and apply there, and you might get selected. They're looking for people from supply chain background because they want to set up equivalent services and all. They're looking for domain people. That's my beginning in IT BPO industry. If I were to say, as the domain guy, I moved in. So first 2 years I was a product manager, come operations guy, because we created B2B properties, some 10 of them in automobile industry, electrical industry, machine manufacturing industry, and most of them I became a person to enable the fulfillment. And for three things, I was the product manager. One was B2B platform, which is like, connect, uh, collaborate, and commerce. Connection was email product services, instant messaging product services. This was all early 2000s, right? And then collaboration was web conferencing online with whiteboard sharing, video conferencing on a dial-up. We had created a product actually. And then the third one was hardcore sourcing, where I was replicating what I had learned. So there used to be a company called Food World in Chennai, very popular. They used to buy lots of rice from Andhra and some other parts of the country. And we did some reverse auctions for them for buying rice. And they could see very big savings, and same vendors, same quality. And we just had to have one person with each rice mill at the time of bid so that they can bid properly and they can really see the technology. That article was so much loved by them that they published a case study in Hindu that time, and I was featured in that as the. And it was like love for me at that time, and even now I feel happy that that happened. This gives you some background of where my life was going, but those things were ahead of time, frankly, in Indian context, right? So we signed up a large public sector bank for deploying emails for them very first time in their life. And they were so thrilled. We enabled some 2,000 branches for them. I was the product manager, and we had a hybrid architecture, which is very common now, right? Exchange and all obviously start with hybrid. That means if you are in same building, your mail will not go out in the beginning. It will just locally distribute, even if internet is not working. But if at some point it will sync back, and also it will do the inter-building transfers, you can say. But that was path-breaking architecture for us at that time, because some of the big products in the country available, even I think probably Lotus and Exchange, were not supporting this. They wanted permanently to be on internet. So for this branch, the selling point was that our solution was Linux powered, and it was on localized network. So if there are 5 people in a branch, they can actually forget about internet connectivity if the maximum communication is with each other. Then they'll know when to switch on and then sync up with the branches or head office. So they love that way of working, and lot of learnings in the journey. And then I became more of a pre-sales person. When we started doing software development applications, we transitioned ourselves, and I was mainly into setting up various kind of solution supply chain, SCM, different things kept happening. My most fulfilling project was setting up a futures commodity exchange. That time, FMC, which is regulator of commodities trading in India as a futures and options, had approved 2 exchanges. Just 2 companies that given license to do commodities, futures and options. One of them became our customer, and they were a Chennai-based conglomerate. They have like sugar as one of their products as a large thing. So obviously for them, it made sense to get into futures and options so that they can have hedging, and plus they can have an arbitrage of gains also. So they invested quite a good sum. And for us in my company in that time, that became the first engagement where we are not just developing the software, we are also giving the hosting, we are also giving the connectivity for them and their business partner. It became the largest deal of that company at that time. And software part itself was very complex and good value, because it had the complete exchange backend logic to be developed and deployed, then the broker terminal to be deployed, and then the trader terminal to be deployed. And it had to comply with all the business rules of haircut and all which you typically have in trading, and the compliances of conflict management. Like if the broker is also a trader, then how that broker should not be able to manipulate. And we keep hearing about vulnerabilities which our very robust national exchanges keep showing up once in a while. So we had to be very, very careful. Like those 3 years, I was daily in that office, understanding the business rule, and we didn't have any competence in our organization to develop it. So we had partnered with a company which was doing similar work. What they were doing in India for stock trading, they were doing the broker and the terminal trader software. No, they had also not done the exchange software, because NSE, BSE, everyone has their own servers, backend, like the application. All people are doing is sometimes like, today Zerodha provides us a front end. That time, this company was one of the good companies to do the trading client. That time, there was less of web app. It was the thick client you download and then do the trading. So we worked with this company for 3-4 years. I loved the domain, but then again, career transition opportunity came, and I moved into my current employer, where I've been for nearly 18 years. And the journey started as a pure business case controller, you can say, as part of business team. I had to help them manage the hype cycles of the emerging technologies, seek approval for funding. We overall had a kitty every year by the executive leadership of around $10 million. In that, some 10 to 15 ideas will compete for. So it was very straightforward. Our leader at that time had a very simple approach. They'll start from the hype cycle of all the keywords in Q3 and Q4 of the year. They'll say, okay, there are these 50 words we are listening. Out of them, we are already, playing with maybe 6, 7, but some 20 are in the right S-curve to try it. They are not too early. They are not too late. Some of them we might have missed the bus, so no point in getting it now, for example. But then we set up, allocate something, we'll allocate 1 million, something may get 3 million, but nothing will get too much of the pie. So we can still try. And then that every year that cycle will repeat. And then the charter is that get a lighthouse customer, get cited in some proposals, get cited in industry if you can't get a customer. So we had 3 things. Either you get money, or you get visibility, or you get something which is tangible to be leveraged basically out of this. like you may work with academia or something while very silently like create something. So we
Okay.
created many interesting things. I was instrumental in setting our enterprise architecture practice in that role, which was very fulfilling, because when we started, our leader had just a vision. He said, we don't do high value creation work. We are mostly doing still the technology adoption work. Let's get into consulting in this domain, because what we do changes every year, but enterprise architect need is always there. Can't we become consultant to our customers? He challenged us, and then we didn't have right skill in the team, so he gave us some criteria. I worked with recruitment, I worked with academy to get people trained on TOGAF, and I got trained certified. And then we built a team from zero to almost 300 over several years, and that was very fulfilling. We had different, all were not enterprise architects, but we had some were technology architects, purely either Java, Microsoft, or legacy modernization, and some were enterprise architects with different themes, either on business architecting side or data architecting side or program management side. So it was a good journey for me to understand this industry, I would say, in much more mature manner, because this was also first time I was in a global setting with more closer to colleagues from on site, and a bit time of exposing myself to the client facing roles and all. Then again, transition happened nearly 12 years ago, when I got an opportunity within the company to move into Philippines in a quite a distinct and different role. And that is the first time I moved into BPO as a service line. And for last 12 years, I'm part of the BPO service line of my company. And you can see these transitions were almost like a S curve, which I had to understand, adapt, and then enjoy the journey. There are always bumps, and there are setbacks. So I won't talk much about last role, because I moved into a new role just 6 months ago. So I was double hatting for last 1.5 years. Now I'm in a marketing function actually, and where I'm jumping that 11 years, because that is also very good part of the story. But I'm cognizant of the time. We have spent almost 15 minutes. But this role, I'm excited, as I was excited to be for my first job in my career. So I'm totally new to marketing domain. I was always fearful of selling and pitching to external entities, but now I've got very specific function, which is a very unique role in IT industry. I didn't know about it. It's more on analyst relation and influencer relationship management. So for our BPO service line, I lead the influencer management tower, you can say, and I'm an individual contributor. That role requires basically us to work with firms like Gartner, Forrester, ITC, Everest, and many others, and see that we are rightly positioned. And many of us who don't have exposure to that domain, they think the reports will just get done. It is not like that. Actually, they're the voice of customer in a very indirect manner. So if some offering we really want to make impact on customer, if we are not able to make, some of these reports can help us in developing a roadmap, and then enhancing the offering, then going to clients, and then going back to the same firm after, let's say, 18 months or 24 months.
Okay.
So that's the journey. Okay. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions, Sunil. Very, very unique journey. I'm sure listeners will find it fascinating. Coming from a procurement, to some extent, I will give you a bit of my ringside view as a working with procurement. I think I have worked with procurement without knowing a procurement all my life. If you're in services and if you're in the management role, you end up working with person named vendor management in the client side. So you work with
Right.
contracts, you work on prices, you work on billing, when will you get the money and stuff like that. So
Right.
that was my initial part of it. As I grew in my own career, I reflect when talking, I was reflecting. I have worked in initial contract negotiation, even right early on. If this company is fit. So we started actually while the company may be thinking whether this company is fit enough, we've also started saying, okay, are we okay to work with such clients? So
Right.
we have done due diligence on the clients and stuff like that. So I've done that part of it, but prima facie, I have also worked in those spaces. And one unique I wanted to share when you're talking about procurement, I was head program management for eFarber, This firm is based out of Italy. They provide
Okay.
procurement services, procurement,
Right.
bidding
It's also.
system.
Hmm.
Bidding system they
Hmm.
provide for government, any of the government orders.
Right.
And
Okay.
in Italy, there is a government rule that every bid needs to have at least 3 orders, and all of them have
Right.
to be transparent in terms of what services they
Hmm.
provide and what is the
Hmm.
rate and why something is being chosen. So there was a one software that was given, and I was part of the re-engineering and development of the whole e-farmer. So I was thinking of all my procurement journeys, but all of them
Right.
never have, while I have used Gartner's hype cycle and everything, I never realized that companies also invest in those hype cycles in terms of generating skills, capabilities.
Right.
It's very fascinating. I never realized that, Sunil. And share with me a couple of things around commodity trading. I was finding it
Yeah.
extremely interesting in terms of commodity trading. Now, if you look at it, it's so particularly options and futures, and
Yeah.
we talk about gold commodity trading, and so much
Right. Right.
is being
Right.
spoken about. But you're saying that this is
Yeah.
what, 20 years back when you were part of the commodity trading setup?
I developed that whole program and project between 2005 to 2007. Maybe 4 we closed the deal, and I never have traded actually. I'm not a trader, but I love to trade. And there's a branding problem. People think futures and option is like a gamble, and a lot of people lose money there. And people actually have, I would say, not. The trading people lose money more because of emotions than because of the platform, because we either become fearful or greedy, and then we execute based on, you can say, outside the technical analysis, which might be the guidance if some people follow technical analysis. So in terms of commodities, I have a strong belief that commodities trading can be a wealth management tool. It can be a financial risk protection platform for companies which have to deal in a commodity, and it can be for nations also a tool to manage their fiscal deficits. And I'm sure treasuries do that, because if your petrol prices fluctuate, yeah. So coming to commodities trading, what I was sharing is that it can be a tool for wealth management as an individual, and it could be a tool for companies to protect their financial exposure, because if they are planning their costing based on certain rates, let's say if they deal in aluminum as a raw material or sugarcane as a raw material, then they can enter into contracts which will ensure that the raw material, or even foreign exchange as a commodity. Because if you have, let's say, cost to be incurred in India, sale to be done in Europe, how do you manage the fluctuations of the currencies? And while forex trading is different from commodity trading, but a lot of financial algorithms of these tradings are common between stocks, forex, and commodity. And nations can protect their fiscal deficits using commodity trading as a leverage. I'm sure treasuries do that, because otherwise, sometime when the prices fluctuate wildly for, let's say, oil or natural gas, things which they depend on day to day, not just gold. Gold is more like a asset which is not consumed on a day basis, but the assets which are consumed for survival, or the commodities which are consumed rather, their fluctuation can impact the livelihood or survival. So that way, yeah, I have some point of view, I can say, on commodity trading. Yeah.
And when you were saying about commodity trading, um, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to wear my technology hat. I was thinking how cool it is that you were almost doing a complete SaaS solution. You're not really you're
Right.
the whole hosting. You're also giving the subject matter expertise, software, as well
Right.
as the back end operations to large extent. I mean, I
Correct.
probably say it's,
Yeah.
it's almost like a platform as a service kind of a model.
Correct. You're
And
right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's also slightly ahead of the where Chennai took lot of the SaaS software in the
Right.
early 2010s, while this is sort of
Correct.
came little early.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So there was no acronym called SaaS at that time when we were working on it. And this company was, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, and they had hired a CEO from Singapore who was deep into commodity training, and he was designated by them based out of Chennai. So we had that person with us. Then they had someone from uh, Indian Exchange who had a deep knowledge of back end issues. That person was one of the risk mitigation person, and then they had one person who had overall good understanding of what this company is trying to do. So there were three core people from their side, and there were one or two other people in the team. So there were just five people to set up the whole platform, and we were their partners. That's all. And we will sit in their office. We had a partner to us, and it was very transparent to them. We had told which company we are partnering with, and still assured them that contract we are liable to meet our commitments which we are signing up. But in the contract also we have mentioned that this is the company we are working with because their credentials in trading domain are much better than what we brought as a company. We didn't have similar experiences. So, and then once they give us something, I'll go back to Bangalore to my partner's office, sit for a few weeks there, get the module done, bring the CDs here, install in their office, have them test it. Like, you'll do the land environment with the trading of someone giving a order, someone seeing as an exchange what's happening, and things like that. And ultimately, how commodity trading works in a very simple manner is, if I have to trade for some amount, let's say I have to trade for $10,000, then I have to pledge something of $1,000 worth to the exchange initially to begin with. That's called the leverage or whatever. But that $1,000 itself may change if the asset is linked to some other variable. Okay, so what happens? That is called haircut on that. So exchange works in a worst case scenario that tomorrow I might default. So they should be able to recover my commitments by disposing that $1,000 which I pledged with them. And it's not the money which I pledge, but when I play in money. And if case in commodities, like in the end, if you land up in a situation that the buyer didn't honor the deal, then you have to take actually the physical goods. So how do you write off that as an exchange becomes an important thing. So that is not a problem for physical stocks because you don't have to worry about delivery. If you trade didn't go well, it will just move in a demat way. But if suppose you have pledged in Diwali thinking that gold prices will go up and you are playing in a way that prices will go up and you committed to buy 100 kgs and suddenly you come Diwali prices crash for some reason. Now you don't want that 100 kgs. So you may at the same time forego your deposit to the exchange, but what will exchange has to honor? Someone is committed to sell it as that rate. So that was the protection mechanics we learned about how exchange can operate. Yeah.
Very, very cool. I think right now the whole world is moving into the high frequency trading and trading
Right.
lot more
Algorithm. Yeah.
algorithmic and model driven trading, right? Where you
Right.
actually model
Right.
and move on. I think it's very
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting world with 2 decades
Yep.
back how things have gone. So slightly changing gear, Sunil. I know you're a published author. I am our first conversation. I think if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
about 8 months back, you were talking about the Radha
Right.
framework and how one can
Right.
unlock your potential. Can you share
Right.
about the
Yeah.
journey of your book itself? Why you decided to write this
Yeah.
book, and what is the book all
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. Right. So first is like as a child, somewhere I had an aspiration to be famous, right? So, and I saw as I was growing up that one way to be famous is to create something. Either you be in movies or be in some creative field. I felt I don't have any artistic abilities, so I thought maybe authoring something will give me a pathway. And I'd been having that desire, you can say, just without any create clarity of what I'll write about. So. Uh, Even in my first job, I published a white paper in 2 years of working, and that was a validation that I could write something meaningful. It got published in a seminar on vendor rating system, which we implemented in that company. So then, when this project happened, when Hindu had to write about the whole program, I worked with my client's senior program manager and myself to create that as an article story, basically. And then I started enjoying that process of contributing, working with others. I became part of two good business books. One is called The Path, which is written by my friend named Sridhar Lola. He's a theory of constraints practitioner and expert. So the path is written in the way is like a business novel, and that book deals completely on iterative S-curve for a pharma company as a situation. And how Sridhar had done that book was he had pulled in some 50 plus industry practitioners in different domains, and all of us were co-authors and co-creators. So we used to have good brainstorming, and then finally he put the program together in like 3 years. Probably it took him to complete that book from inception to going live. It became a good seller in its own circle. It's a private group of people, you can say, who are more enthusiastic about learning about iterative S-curve or theory of constraints and all. And that was in 2013. Then I moved to my new role in the Philippines. To some time I was like silent, and then pandemic happened. I started having more time for myself, and I was also having a midlife crisis. I was wondering, what am I going to do? What have I done? And I felt very proud of the work I've done, but I didn't feel fulfilled for any of those things. So I said, let me re-investigate, and I did a lot of investigations in those 2 to 3 years. And one of them was to systematically understand how to publish a book. And in October 2022, I attended a 7 day residential program in Ahmedabad by a coach in India. He's a global coach called Sneh Desai. And that program was for me to become a coach, actually. I was exploring that as a domain. Felt that, yeah, this is a good thing. And I never realized that so many people whom I go to my professional dilemma, they're actually mentoring and coaching me. They might be aware of that. They never mentioned it to me or whatever. So then in October 2022, in that event, I committed I'll publish a book in 90 days, because they gave us a framework how to publish a book, which I have learned very well, but I could not implement for myself. So subsequently, my journey kept taking me to different paths. The topic of the book, the scope of the book kept changing, and I was experimenting whatever I am trying to write in my use case as a scenario, right? So my book is a self-help book. So I was saying, where is that I needed that book? So one was I needed to find purpose in life, because as I said, I was quite disillusioned. Second is I'm not a disciplined person, so I was looking for something to become more committed towards long-term goals. As a personality, I'm not a disciplined person, so which is okay, because I know I'm a connector. So I don't have to worry about being as strongly disciplined as some other people are, which is good for them. I just need to be hygiene level good enough to maintain what I'm committing. So that was missing at times. So I was looking at that. So finally, I won't say that I have written this book. I think I got blessed with some people who guided me, and then this Radha acronym happened as a just as a two things I'll say. One is I force fitted my message in a framework which I want to call as Radha. So I force fitted that acronym, but the way a book is written is the narration of different characters. Again, I got inspired from the way the book path was, but these are mystical and imaginary characters. It shows a character from Earth called the Rocketer, who has landed in a planet which name we don't know, and I'm not worried about the name. And there, Rocketer finds everyone is hunky dory and confused why on Earth we have problem in this. And then he becomes friendly with a cow called Dhenu, who is like knowing everything in universe ever said and done. So Dhenu becomes the guide and coach for Rocketer to answer. And then there's some other people. One is called Guruji, who's a spiritual teacher. There's X, who's a robot. He's also quite knowledgeable. And then there is a Jeremy V, who's a practical guy. And then there's an Amita Ji. And these names are a mix of some real names and fictional things, right? So with that, they are discussing about only one problem, that how to be happy in life. But how Radha framework comes into play is that 5 elements. And the book title is Unlock Yourself in the New Age. The new age, I refer to the current age of post-Gen AI, because it's highly risky and opportunistic age. We can either break ourselves or we can make ourselves much better, individually, as a family, as a business, as a nation, as a society. And so this framework, I am trying to highlight that it's not needed for everyone. It may not be needed for anyone, because there's enough knowledge for people. So I have not created anything new. I have curated some of my learnings and packaged them in this. And some of those things which I'm talking about, like one of them I'm highly impressed is tiny habits as a whole philosophy. So I've emphasized one chapter on tiny habit, and like that there are 5 key chapters. So Radha means R is for reflecting, that who we are, self-introspection, self-assessment, self-awareness. And the lesson I learned while writing was self-awareness is not just knowing who we are, but more than that, loving ourselves unconditionally for what we are.
Yeah, I understand. Self-aware is basically awareness as well as self-love.
Correct. That is a very challenging part, the second part. And second one is, I may be aware that I'm a lazy person. I love watching cricket. I love watching Netflix. Let's say this is my prime goal in life. I am well aware that I want to eat, have fun. But I am 14 years old. I'm in grade 9. So there are some duties for me. The second part is ask. That means do an environment assessment and understand what are the duties and obligations which we must have to fulfill. Someone may be a provider, someone may be a homemaker, someone may be a student, someone may be a CEO or whatever, right? So what happens, you are aware now that you are not good for that position or you don't like that position. Someone may be not happy with the physical environment and they are, but still they are surviving that life in a hardship, let's say. So you might like to move, which is okay. But till the time you are there, please show up and do what you need to do. So this part is not showing up part. This part is just understanding where you need to do what. As a nurse may not go to hospital, will matter to at least someone. And that day she may not or he may not feel like going, right? So that's what this chapter is about, understanding what others are expecting us. I'm not saying please all. I'm not saying have a low self-esteem. I'm just saying understand that you are a social being. You're not an individual person in some unique way. With this, actually, I'm talking about now detaching from anything which happens in life, which is D. So D is more spiritual, but it is quite contextual in management lessons, that you let go of fear of success. I mean, fear of failure, and also fear of success or infatuation and attachment to the success. Sometimes we are fearful of success, that if success happens, then we will have to change some status quo. Okay, or we are staying with family, we may need to go to boarding as a student. If we get selected in a university in a different country, all that will happen. So we are sometimes fearful. At other times, we become comfortable with what we have achieved. Both are dangerous, and fear of failure, of course, is a big fear most of us always have. So we don't want to commit to something which we think we might like to commit. So how to get off all this and how nature has a lot of lessons for us is in detached chapter. Then I talk about not being feeling alone as H, help. So ask for help and help others. We don't have to wait to say that once my 10 goals are fulfilled, when I have X $1,000, then I'll go and help someone. Actually, at any given time, on any given day, given moment, we can think of whom we can contribute to something. It could be at home, very simple. We could do some chores which someone else is responsible for and make life a little easier for them, or in our neighborhood or in somewhere, right? I know you do a lot of volunteering, and those things don't need a perfect state to do. You would have your own challenges, commitment, but you still go out, and that kind of life you need not have to glamorize, or you don't have to do too much of talking, but you're just doing for your own self. And a lot of, I would say, people whom I've seen and grown with, they were like that. Like they won't make much noise of what they're trying to help others. But most often we feel shy of asking help. We see asking help as a sign of weakness in society. We claim to be a self-made man and woman, and that is appreciated. We want to be alpha personality, saying we are all do all, which is good. But we need to understand that we happened only because two people came together in their own lives firstly. So let's not discount many other bigger things which go in play of very basic existence. And even if we are talking on this meeting, so many people have gone behind it to make the table which I have kept my laptop on, this laptop, the connectivity. How can we say we are self-made ever? So I think if we have to be self-made, then please tell me how. I'll ask that question. So I am very strong proponent of asking for help and helping others. The last one is A is act. So they are not necessary in any order, but this is where I talk about not having motivation and discipline as your strength. Keep them like a UPS at your house, but don't worry on UPS to run your day-to-day life. So habits and rituals are your way to go, and that is what I'm taking. That message that your life of all things, where you are, how you are, where you want to go, and then start acting on. And that biggest thing of acting is showing up when you're not feeling like showing up, at least doing little bit of what you could have done at your best. You can't do every day. Just keep moving on. It's well reflected when you look at athletes, people who perform in creative professions. They just show up, right? And this is where I think a lot of things come into play. Like all this forms in some way is a S curve, that you are looking at where you are and where you need to go, and then you are making chosen moves to shift from one S curve to other S curve. And that's what ACT is all about. And what I've done, Gayatri, is I've made a small structure that if you are self-reflecting, how do you create an output out of that exercise? So I've not just left it with literature alone. So one chapter I've just given a skeleton of what a Radha framework mathematically can look like a blocks. I was inspired by the business model canvas. So I've created kind of one-page canvas to have all these 5 elements done. So if you're creating tiny habits, what is your trigger? What is the tiniest behavior you will do? What is the celebration you are going to do? So I've put those things for someone to easily get started. Then I've kept 2 chapters. One is, which is very close to me, is learning with compassion with divergence in the society. And we often assume that all of us are equally capable of implementing what we are told. But actually, neurodivergence is coming out as a big thing in workplace, in society. And that I've covered a bit because that's a topic of its own depth. I've cited some people with whom whose literature has influenced me. So they're learning with compassion, and what they say is not coaching and helping for compliance. Like often one is coach may have self goal, which he or she feels coachee must achieve. That is a very subtle and a unconscious behavior which happens. As a coach, I might have aspiration for my coachee to win a gold medal, and we are all chasing gold medal because as a coach, I wish that. But we never realize that that person is living that life as it is happening. So should we really go for a gold medal or enjoy the journey of preparing for a competition and losing gracefully? So that is neurodivergence. It becomes more relevant because if a child is, let's say, going to go to school and not able to get ready by himself or herself, and someone is trying to assist him or her, there's a pressure, someone has to go to office, that school bus is honking. At that time, if you don't complete the task, the child's medical interpretation is that he or she can negotiate this. On the other side, if you push it too hard, it will create a negative ripple. So same thing happens in adult learners because those child are still in society. Not all of them are explicitly very limited from the normal social interaction. They might be our colleagues, they might be our business associates. So in general, self-help for neurodivergent has not been talked at all. So I thought I'll leave something for caregivers and the neurodivergents themselves to explore further. In the one chapter, I have kept more like online communities have become a force to reckon with. It's more like a 101 because some people may be very intensely in different communities. Some people may not be touching it at all, saying that, no, I am quite safe without being on online, like, which is okay. If you have a physical circle, you actually don't need online circle if you have a real good thing. But most of us need to do a hybrid balancing between face-to-face community, and that I have just shared one case study of an NFT community which I'm very impressed with. It's Gary Vaynerchuk in USA. He has launched and run an NFT projects over last 4 years very successfully, maybe over $1 billion turnover and going places. Basically, he's not just kept NFT as virtual asset. Of course, that virtual asset is there, but linked with the wallet, is providing physical benefits, including a conference where 10,000 people huddle together once in a year for 3 years. He did that. And there was an interesting stat, like some people married because they met at the conference besides Discord chats, which they were doing. At least one couple married, right? And I could relate because I held NFTs, and once my wallet was hacked and I got excluded from the community because by virtue of blockchain, my wallet didn't have the asset which was giving me access. I felt very lonely. And this was just Discord connection. So if you combine online with physical, it becomes a very big bond. I'm not saying for and against NFTs. What I'm saying is that was one example which had a lot of real life and virtual connect coming in a very interesting way. But there are many other communities which are thriving on online plus offline mode. So we should not ignore it. And there's no right and wrong way, but we have to be safe in what we do. So there's a lot of cybercrime happening. We can't just be very casual about participating or sharing even our face in some platforms. So that is the part there. That's all. I mean, the book is feedback I'm getting from those who are really close and honest to me that it's a bit tough to read. It's heavy. I thought it was a light read. So I'm doing now edition 2, which is a bit more lighter and maybe a bit more graphical things. I have good characters in that, so I can have some graphical artists support me to create. My aspiration is that this book comes out in a version which is friendly to 6-year-old kids. Because my book, some of the 8-10 years are liking actually, surprisingly.
Nice.
And Recently, when I put a stall in our colony, one guy is reading the book already. He was asking me about, this self-reflection. The other person came, his friend. He said, "Isn't uncertainty good in life?" Because my book, somehow I'm not positioning uncertainty as a positive thing, because I'm saying unlock yourself in the new age. And my main thing about new age is uncertainty. So I said, uncertainty is good. If you are decided to go on a trail, you don't know what all will come, and you are okay for the journey, you are curious, you are positive minded for the setbacks. But if earthquake comes in the earth and the home, then you are not happy with that uncertainty. So that's the difference. I think we do like uncertainty. I learned that day by talking to him that it's not that uncertainty is bad only.
Your journey of procurement, as well as being an influencer, being in the trade circle, everything, right? I can
Yeah.
also see that your persona, when we meet in person, comes out very
Right.
explicitly. So
Yeah.
that good charm and ability to connect with no barriers.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
and that actually also is reflecting in your book. How do you stay content, happy, and not necessarily hang on to the age old saying that you have to be number one to be happy. If you say, then
Yeah.
what happens? Are we saying that the top 1% of people who
Yeah.
are appearing in the newspapers, what about the rest 99% or
Right.
99.9% of the people, right? So I
Correct.
think
Correct.
I am really, really happy for your book, and I wish you good
Thank
luck
you.
for the new
Yeah.
versions also that you are
And
working on.
I must congratulate you for running this show, Chitra and Shiv, along with you, Gayatri, right? Because it's not easy to run a program like this, to have a very good theme and then run with it for so long. So I wish you all the power in coming years. Maybe you'll impact more lives than so far you have done. So this kind of contribution which you create, it's very difficult to measure at times, and someone might come and go by listening and change, which may not come to you also as a feedback, right? So we just pick some nuggets from some time, and then when your content becomes so rich and so deep, obviously it will have its own ripples created. So thanks for having me. I felt very lovely talking to you, and see you again sometime in some other episode. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you so much. All the best. And it was a pleasure for me to talk to you.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People Stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.